My name is Steve, and my goal is to find the world's best performing anchors. Now, I normally test larger anchors, but today we'll look at this 2.5-pound stainless steel Mantus dinghy anchor. Now, this anchor's been featured in two previous videos that I kind of compared it to several other dinghy anchors in multiple seabeds. And I'm going to re-show you just some clips from those previous tests along with the footage from a new test. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with these anchors, they're pretty clever in the way that they disassemble. No tools required. And they just come right apart. Be a fantastic anchor for very small boats or dinghies. And as you'll find if you watch those previous videos, I stated that this is easily the finest dinghy anchor that money can buy. Mantus M1 dinghy anchor, 2.5 pounds. Okay, these first clips are from video number 84, and I kind of pulled a fast one on you guys. I didn't show that we were using the large 15,000-pound boat, but in any event, this little 2.5-pound dinghy anchor did hold that large vessel in a steady 10, gust 15 knot breeze. These next clips came from video number 88, where I drove around the bay looking for different sized stones and gravel. And the Mantus held the best of them all. They were all ineffective in the 2-inch sized stones, but smaller rocks and gravel, the Mantus either held half throttle or in many cases full power from this 6-horse Yamaha outboard.
Full throttle, holding.
Held full power.
Okay, it dragged slowly and then released at 3/4 throttle.
These clips are from video number 77. I've got the boat pulling just above idle, and then I veered all the way around 180 degrees, but I did so gently in a smooth arc. The anchor remained level and buried and just rotated around perfectly. Now I'm driving the boat up over for one of my 180-degree reset tests, and the anchor did perfectly. This is a non-roll bar Mantus dinghy anchor, and it negotiated that reset no problem and held full power, maybe slightly dragging in this soft, loose sand. Which brings us up to date with the current video that you haven't seen yet. The boat we're using is the 18-foot fishing boat with a 90-horsepower Honda outboard. And my idea here is to just see what the ultimate holding power of a 2.5-pound Mantus dinghy anchor is. I'm using 5-to-1 scope. I'm using a rode that's much bigger than what you would normally use for this size anchor. We would assume you'd use a much smaller diameter chain, and the anchor would have a much easier time burying a smaller chain. So the fact that this anchor has done as well as it did is really quite remarkable, and you'll see here what I mean. Now here we're up to close to 300 pounds of thrust, and the anchor never does quit moving, but I still think this is very remarkable performance. It does release here just now, and I'm stopped the motion here. Take a look carefully. We can see part of the roll bar, and at this point everything is intact. Roll bar is in the correct position, nothing's deformed, bent, or broken. And I leave the power on for just a bit, then chop it right as the anchor resets. And I thought, well, okay, let's go right back up to it. So I go right back up to the 385 pounds of thrust, and as you see, I just keep going until it releases. Now, you have to understand that these high power settings or thrust settings for a small dinghy or very small boat, this is equivalent to a violent hurricane. No one would ever expect this anchor to have to hold this much thrust. This is just a test, and I think it's a testament to the design. It'd be great if it could stop moving, and maybe if we used more scope and a thinner chain or maybe rope only, maybe it would allow the anchor to dive deeper. But I think it's remarkable. In spite of this motion, it's just amazing that this little anchor could do what it did. So here at 600 pounds of thrust, the anchor finally releases completely, and the roll bar is bent back. I did scrutinize all my footage, and I could not determine when it happened. It happened somewhere between the roughly 400 and 600 pounds of thrust.
Okay, we have an anchor casualty. The roll bar has bent back under very, very high load.
Okay, so that was a pretty firm seabed, and we pulled on this anchor extremely hard, and sure enough, the roll bar bent back. Get in close here, we can see that these tabs, they get narrow here, and they just twisted. Mantus could have made these tabs wider and therefore stronger, but it's possible that they did this on purpose. Maybe they wanted this to bend here rather than bending the fluke. The roll bar is much easier to replace. Not sure, I haven't talked to Mantus about this at all, but in any event, I do not think this is a failure. This anchor was subjected to far more than what anybody would reasonably expect. Certainly if your dinghy was at anchor during a hurricane and you ended up with a bent roll bar, that would be the least of your problems. I'm assuming that Mantus has a very good warranty, and I'm not gonna, they donated this to me for testing, so I'm kind of a special case here. And I'm not even gonna ask them to give me a new one. They'll see this video, and if they choose to, that's just fine. But let's see if we can get it straightened out here on the workbench. Okay, first I will try to disassemble the roll bar. I haven't altered this roll bar at all since the pull in the water, so it's a little bit more challenging to take apart now that it's deformed. But look at that, came right apart. Perfect. When you do bend metal back and forth, you can work harden it or fatigue the metal. I've done a lot of metal bending, and just my gut feeling thinks that there's very little, if any, degradation in the strength of that piece of steel. If this was galvanized metal, the galvanizing would likely be flaking off in the area where it was twisted. And that's a benefit of this stainless steel. It's just the same as it was. So I think it's just fine. Like I say, if Mantus wants me to have a new, unmolested roll bar, I'll happily take it and discard this one, but I don't think it's necessary. I think this roll bar is just fine. So if my dinghy anchor bends in a hurricane, I'm okay with that. But what about the full-size anchor? Can this Mantus roll bar bend in a similar way? I think so. I think it's got similar proportions to the way it's built, and yeah, the weak point will be this tab, and it may bend in a very violent hurricane. Do I think they made a mistake in the design of this anchor? I'm not going to say so. I think they made a judgment call here. They know how strong their anchor is, and they've expanded the dimensions of this thing. It's tall, it's wide, they've kept the weight down, and I think they focused on performance. Expecting this anchor to hold a 15,000-pound boat in a major devastating hurricane, it's not designed for that. If you want to hold your boat in that situation, you either need multiple anchors or grossly oversized anchors. This is on the size chart for my boat. It's at the upper end. They give 3 categories, and a 45-pound anchor for a 15,000-pound boat is rated at 50 knots or more, but not 100 knots, not 150 knots.
If I would up to, say, an 85-pound Mantis, now that would probably hold the boat in a huge hurricane with a good bottom. Yeah, might just do it. Do I think the roll bar would bend in that situation? Nope. I think the scantlings would be much more generous, and I think I'd break my chain before I deformed an 85-pound Mantis. Now here's a roll bar that's not likely to bend under any circumstances. We can see that they've attached the roll bar to the shank. Now the big question is how's it going to perform? And we don't know yet. This is a Knox anchor. It just came in the mail to me a couple days ago. I haven't had it in the water, so I'm pretty excited. We'll see how this works. It's a very similar weight as the Mantis, but it's far more compact. Scantlings are just massive for the shank. It's wide, it's tall. This fluke, although we have a gap here, which at first glance you might think, well, that makes it weaker. But looking underneath, they've doubled it up. We've got kind of a triangular box here. In any event, I don't want to just detract from this Mantis video, but clearly there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to designing your roll bar attachment. Okay, that's a wrap for the Mantis dinghy anchor. So it's been several months since I started a fundraising campaign to help support all this anchor testing, and I believe in full disclosure, so here's a quick report. I'm getting about $130 a month from YouTube. That's revenue from the advertisements that you folks are watching. Thank you. A similar amount, maybe another $130, is coming in from Patreon. So that's the folks that have donated or pledged to donate a certain amount per video or per month. Thank you so much for that. And lastly, I'm getting a steady stream of direct one-time payments through PayPal. Just this week I had someone donate over $100. Just wonderful. Thank you very much. So let's call it $400 or $500 a month here as of December 2020. I'm pouring the money right back into the project. I've bought a secondhand anchor. I've beefed up my computing for creating these videos, gas for the boats, lots of expenses. I've got a pretty good expense coming up though. I'm trying to line up a tugboat, a boat that is capable of testing these anchors up to and hopefully beyond their maximum holding power. It's not going to be exorbitant money, but it's not going to be free. So keep the money coming in. Everything you've done so far has been just hugely appreciated. And as always, anchor safely.